Hello! So today we're preparing two types of pecan pie, our classic and a bourbon. The bourbon requires flour the counter. I've done it before, I don't do it anymore. I do 2 things of saran wrap, the crust, and then 2 on top, and then I roll it out. And as you see, when I have a pan, it makes perfectly for our pie dish. A 9-inch pie crust, and when you put the pie crust on top, you have your 1-inch border. So you have your pie plate on top, which is 9 inches, your crust, and you notice that there's at least 1 inch of give. Oops. So we flattened out our dough, take off the saran wrap, and we'll use it for the next dough. The saran wrap also helps us place the pie crust in the pie plate. We flip it, push it in. And it helps to do it with the saran wrap. Don't forget to crimp your edges. And then make a pretty design. The pinch design is what I know how to do. The basic pie crusts, which you can also find in my Cocinarista cook channel. They're on YouTube. Now we're going to put this in the freezer put your crust in the freezer for approximately 30 minutes. Pinch up your tops. And when I pinch, I try not to pinch into the pie plate. I pinch away, so when we take out the pie to serve, you get the crust with it. Because sometimes I've noticed that if you don't do that, you miss the pie crust. So we're going to freeze this now for 30 minutes, do our next pie crust for our next pecan pie. Put this in the freezer. Okay, so now we're going to do 6 eggs. Get your insulin pumps going. 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of corn syrup, a teaspoon of vanilla, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We're going to whisk the eggs first. Oh, and don't forget, you got to put some butter. I forgot. Got to melt some butter in here. Just 4 tablespoons of butter that will melt via the micro. If you do not have large eggs, you can always do 6 mediums and 1 more to boot. I don't have 6 large eggs here. I have 6 medium, but I'm giving a little extra boost. So it's 7 medium or 6 large. I'm going to whisk this up. Add our sugar and melted butter, salt, and vanilla. We're going to melt a 1/4 cup, 4 tablespoons of butter. Whisk 6 eggs. Now we're going to put in our tablespoon of vanilla, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of sugar, your corn syrup. When you're dealing with syrups, butter the inside of your measuring cup so it comes out nice and easy. It still needs some guidance, but it does come out faster when you butter your measuring cup. Corn syrup, your sugar, your eggs, your insulin pump, 4 tablespoons of butter. And now we whisk this together. We're going to put in the 2 cups of toasted pecans in here. So it makes a nice caramel mixture. Mix in our 2 cups of toasted pecans. Get your pie crust from the freezer. And then we're going to lay on top a cup of pecans that have not been chopped. So, for your basic pecan pie, we're going to pour this on top, and then this little section of pecans, the perfect halves, will make a nice symmetrical design on top. We're going to do a symmetrical design on top, stick it in the oven. Your oven's preheated at 350, and then we're going to bake. Your pies will both bake for at least an hour or until set. Your pecan pies tend to puff up a little bit. They may crack, but they'll be perfect. Mix our bourbon pecan pie. You're going to cook up 2½ cups of pecans, 10 minutes in the oven. But this has 2 large eggs. This one I have large eggs for. 1/2 cup of molasses, 2/3 cups of brown sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Don't forget our lovely friend, the bourbon. Brown sugar, 1/2 cup of molasses. If you're lucky enough to have sorghum, you can do sorghum, but we don't have sorghum here, so we have molasses. 6 tablespoons of browned butter, which is you melt the butter until it starts foaming in little chips, as you see, little chips in there form. Put that in there. So 6 tablespoons of butter that's been browned, 2 large eggs, 2/3 cups of light brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of bourbon. Whisk away. Your pie crust is in the freezer. The oven is preheated at 350. You're going to cook it for an hour. It puffs up, and you got 2 gorgeous pecan pies. We have our 6 tablespoons of butter that we've browned. We have 1/2 cup of molasses, 2/3 cups of light brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 large eggs, our cooked 2½ cups of pecans, our crust that we've made already and have frozen the crust, helps with the baking. Half a cup of molasses, 6 tablespoons of butter that we have browned, 2/3 cups of light brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of bourbon, and 2½ cups of toasted pecans, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, just in case I didn't say that. Use the whisk to help you coat the other ones. Now this is the bourbon pecan pie. The only reason why it's called bourbon is because there's bourbon in it. But if you don't want liquor in it, you don't have to put it in there. Now the bourbon pecan pie we cook at 425 for a few minutes, 25 minutes, and then we reduce it to 325 and cook it for an hour. The other pecan pie we cook for an hour at 350. So this is the bourbon one. We'll put it on, always put it on a baking sheet. And this is our classic pecan pie. Look at that. Isn't that pretty, that symmetrical design? My lovely assistant did that for me. And we'll put that on a pan. Pan always helps moving the hot dish in and out. Pie shield on top so the crust does not burn. 350 for an hour. We're baking both of the pies until they puff up. Make sure you put your pie shield on top so the crust does not burn. And we'll see you in about an hour to enjoy our lovely pecan pies. Buon provecho. See you in an hour. The pies are done. Here is the bourbon pecan pie. Isn't that beautiful? Here's the other one. Perfect pecan pies. Enjoy. Buen provecho.